Hi, sweetie.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Happy Lunar New Year, Year of the Rabbit to Axel. It's your year, baby.
But yeah, I
It's
got
the first
we got four lucky feet in this house. So
lucky paws. We the first day of the Lunar Year, New Year when we're recording this. So I like the vibe. I like the vibe of it already. So
yeah,
yeah, it's good. I'm gonna get down to Chinatown sometime this week and pick up some of their delightful red bean pastries. And if I find anything with a rabbit on it, I was going to get that for you, Axel.
oh.
Although you can just look in the mirror.
I know, right? I show him the pictures I take of him, and he kind of looks, and I'm like, yeah, you're good looking. Yeah,
Or,
you know,
I
handsome.
mean, he's got his own show. He's, got pictures taken of
Got
himself.
two pics. He's like, what are we arm candy for him?
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. So Axel's like the big tough rabbit. You're the best bunny, and I love you. And happy bunny, you're the bunny.
He was like, yeah, yeah.
So cute. Oh my God. I love him.
Oh, he loves you because you saw how he perked up.
So cute. So what are we talking about today? Um, what do we got?
The lockdown effects on children.
Oh, lockdown effects on children. Wow. Well, how about that?
Yeah, where do we start? Ay, 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 ay.
I mean, I think at first it was like kind of okay. Um,
Short term.
Very short term. And then it was really, really hard. I have a friend who has a 7-year-old. No, she's 12 now. Good Lord. Time flies. Um, and it was really, 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 really hard for her not to see her friends and be at school because it's really more the social aspect of it that's
But
more important to that for them.
yeah, they took that away, even being physically in school.
Hmm.
Stupid cubicle things they set up for each kid. Some of them like really went all out and put like the plexiglass box around them. So how is that normal socializing? That's not. You're
we
better
had
off being at home
we
and
had
then
that
meeting
at my work.
afterward or once a week or something, arrange play groups than to be in that environment for 8 hours and it starts to get into you psychologically that, oh, this is acceptable.
Yeah, I don't think people really realize what that does to your head. I think I remember telling you just even wearing the mask, I was coming home and like my jaw hurt. I felt very tense in my mouth. And then the whole idea of it was just so astronomically insidious and absurd, being at work because we did have those plastic cubicles around,
Mm.
um, the whole 9 yards. And, you know, and yet you're not, it's open. The top is open
Yeah.
and you gotta take a mask off to eat. So I just don't understand what people were thinking, but then also, meeting me in the hallway and yelling, spitting on me, actually, sipping their coffee and saying, these people are wearing a mask. And I was like, but you're spitting on me right now. What's going on? Why is everybody? Fear is such a powerful thing. It will do so much to you.
Yeah.
And your, complete loss of ability to think. So for children, it's really, really hard because they didn't, you know, you do as you are told when you're a child. You're still developing those things. So a little heartbreaking for me.
But they knew what it was going to involve. I mean, there's been studies for years about human interaction, especially with the elderly, that you need to have contact, physical contact, the hugging. You need that because we're social beings.
Hmm.
And even isolating the elderly was detrimental because it causes a failure to thrive. And
Yeah.
for children, um, they were even dumbing down there's like there's like these landmarks for child development, speech and word association, speaking 2 words at a time, 3 words at a time, speaking sentences. And if you looked, they actually dumbed down the criteria, and they pushed out the developmental scale for older. So they knew it was going to cause developmental, socially, as well as verbal skills. And we learn by watching people speak as well as hearing them. And you put the mask on, you're knocking out 50% of your speech development.
Yeah.
Not to mention the anxiety it causes. And it's not really helping because kids touch their faces all the time. So they're touching the mask and they're contaminating the mask
Oh
that
my God.
they're wearing
That's another
out
thing. It's just
day.
disgusting. It's like you may as well pick one up off the ground that's been stepped on by someone who just got out of the subway and put it
Yeah,
on your face. Because
yeah,
you're like
pretty much.
breathing in this disgusting. It's absolutely revolting. I had to change mine like every 5 minutes. I
Yeah.
was so disgusted with the entire. I knew someone who also got very sick almost immediately. She was waiting tables in the South, and
Mhm.
you know, she had gotten a very bad infection from inhaling what was in the mask. And nice,
Well,
nice
the
job,
doc,
peeps.
the Dr. F, I think the first month into the pandemic, funded a research lab at NIH for the research on fungal pneumonia infections.
Mhm.
Like, duh. I guess they were expecting something, because we're mouth breathers. And when we're outside 8 hours a day and you're walking up a flight of stairs or you're running to the bus, you're not breathing through your nose, you're breathing through your mouth. And that's supposed to be exhaled, not rebreathe,
Yeah,
right? So all the exosomes and all the CO
it
that's
so
coming out,
grosses me out. Like it so grosses
it's
me
going
out.
to dry back in.
I couldn't even like deal with that when I had to.
Yeah.
And then you've got these poor children running around because they really don't know. They're going to rip it off if they're really super uncomfortable because kids do that anyway. But, you know, such obedient, good kids. I mean, geez. Oh, my heart.
But
But
like, to
not
me, it
good.
was the final nail in the coffin because, with the computer games and, all the stuff that takes away the social interactions, this was like the final step. This was the final step to really distance each other.
Yeah. I think that we're going to see the ramifications of this down the line, like
Serious one.
most unfortunately. I don't want to see that,
Mhm.
but we're going to. There's just no question about the fact that you will see a child and how it affected their development in about 7 years, maybe 5, maybe sooner.
And then we're not even talking about, any child that's, developmentally challenged to begin with. They have a really hard time. It's hard explaining it to an autistic child that you have to wear this thing and they can't tolerate it. I have 2 friends that have autistic children, and they were telling me just how horrible. And I do have a friend that's a teacher, and she was saying the same thing. It's just so detrimental, detrimental.
Yep. And the one good aspect is that children are very resilient and we will have a lot of healing tools and certainly people who will want to help. I would be among them for these kinds of things in the future for sure.
Mhm.
Um, and we'll get it sorted, as they say, because it's going to need to be. And that's the thing of really working together. I think that we have to really get on board with because people will need help, and
Mhm.
this has been pretty awful.
For
I don't,
everybody. Yeah, it was
and very difficult on the parents
Yeah.
having to figure out how they were going to work and have their children at home, or work from home and have their children
Mhm.
at home, or, be threatened that they would lose their job and have children and mouths to feed.
Yeah.
And then the stress that that puts on them, which then puts stress on the kids. I mean, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
And we do know a lot more about each other. Like there are some good aspects. Like I think we have to look at those things, which is that the unification of families is very different now.
Yeah.
Funny things that people said, like this woman heard her heard her husband on a business call going in the other room going, yeah, let's just circle back about this. And she was like, oh my God, you're the circle back guy. I never knew my husband was the circle back guy. Oh, this is terrible. And then you've got your kids running around driving you absolutely bananas, but there's a closeness and there's a family. It kind of did the opposite of the intent, is partially what I'm saying too.
Mhm. Mhm.
Try as you might, but you know, we're very funny people and we will come together and start singing songs about it because that's what human beings do.
Yeah, we were already doing all the memes.
Yeah, it's very, I mean, this is the great thing. Yeah.
I
So
have
it's,
to I have to say, seeing some of those things really got me through a lot because
oh
you know
God, yeah. It was,
it
we're
was so horrible going
genius.
through everything, but to still be able to laugh at the absurdity,
Yeah.
you know.
And I'm a bit of a recluse, so I loved the initial, which is a very funny thing to say, living in a large city. But I do like I do like to spend a lot of time alone. So I was like, "Yay, lockdown! This is cool." And then I
It
was
was nice
like,
getting on
"Ugh."
the roads. It was like no traffic.
That I loved. That part of it I loved, and I think that there was a requirement for nature to take a breather and kind of reset itself, for lack of a better word.
I think, yeah, and I think it was sort of meant to be that way in some regards. Um, and it was nice to see a lot of people took advantage of that and worked on themselves, but it was sad to see other people didn't use the time at all.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, I had read about the psychological effects on children and how important it was for their development to see people's smiling faces, to be able to discern. It's the cognitive development of how you're
Mhm.
learning what's good and what's not, what's trustworthy, what's not, it's a building of your intuition is what's happening, I think, within the psychology of the child. So I would be outside every time I saw a stroller, I would just rip my mask down and smile at the child. It's like my rebellious way. And I didn't care, until after I just burned my mask on fire after that, because I'm just not doing it. Sorry. Doesn't work, never proven to, total bunch of bull
It's
shit.
interesting. What was it? The Del Big Tree with the high wire. He had an episode early on with two ex OSHA um, higher ups, and they basically said OSHA is the ones that would go in and train the doctors on PPE. They were the ones that would train every they would go in, assess the situation at work, and then make their recommendations. And through all the years prior to this whole scam, they never recommended masks. That was like the very last thing on
Mm.
the list.
And what is OSHA?
OSHA is the occupational safety, OSHA health. It's the ones that are in charge.
Association, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
the ones that always come in and they assess pretty much any workplace for
Hmm.
health hazards, physical hazards. So
And that was their very last suggestion, was a
that
mask.
was always their last because they said that was the least effective.
Oh God, I mean, how many times they went back and forth with this stuff? It was just insane.
The one thing was ventilation, and nobody wanted to spend money on increasing their ventilation. Now I know Mohegan Sun because I went there the first year. I was doing a ghost hunt up in Connecticut and I had free rooms. So I stayed overnight during the first year of the pandemic, and I remember people were looking at me, are you crazy? I'm like, no, they have their medical doctor overseeing the whole thing. They've increased the ventilation system. They're like sterilizing the room. I trust them. I totally trust them because they made it sound like they really approached it more scientifically. They really put all the effort in fixing the ventilation and increasing the airflow, which was the major thing. And that was the first. Engineering controls are the first thing. PPE is like last on the list. So PPE is like the personal protection stuff, like the gloves and the masks and all that. It's always engineering controls first.
And I'm not really in touch with a ton of people to see like how that worked for them, how it was. I know it was an enormous relief to have their children go back to school. And just very interesting, you know, and my friend's daughter didn't want to go back to this one school. She just refused. She didn't like it, the way they were doing things. And I thought, oh, good for her. I love this kid. But then she found another school with one of her best friends was going to, and they were so happy to be together and having fun. And I think that was a really interesting moment for a 12-year-old child to have that kind of discernment. Like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not doing that one that way. And I thought that was cool. And it wasn't just a fussy thing. It was a real big issue for her. And kids do know what they want. Not that you should be letting your children run amok. I mean, that's insane. They need, limits and support and all of those things.
But at the very least, you should listen to them and their concerns, and then
Yeah,
then meet it out with them together.
absolutely. And respect that in a way that's because they do know what they want. And most of the time they are right. It's just like maybe that one time when they want like 7 boxes of chocolate chip cookies for dinner, you're going to be like, you're going to get a tummy ache. And sometimes they need to learn that.
I know when I was younger, I had better intuition, my gut, and then as you get to be an adult, you're so caught up in the work and running here, running there, you kind of lose touch with that. So, it's good, but foster that in the children so that they never lose it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to actually talk to some children and find out what their experience was. If anybody knows anyone who wants to come on our podcast, I would love that to just ask them what their experience was with it. I don't want to speak too much for them. I can speak for what I see and what I think, but like I'd love to hear their experience. I want to hear everything from them because they really know what's up. Kids are great like that. And I love talking to them because I learned so much from them, truly. I was watching Sasha with a young girl recently, and it was just an incredible interview. And I thought, she asked him, what do you do when you're sad and lonely? And his answer was like being like sort of along the lines of like being grateful for what he does have and thinking about people who don't, and then he feels better. And that's a very fair enough, it's very much from our generation.
It's a start, yeah.
And then he asked her what she does when she's sad and lonely. And I thought, God, this is such a great thing for everyone to hear. She said, I just go through the feelings and then I go out and I play.
Wow.
And I thought, that's the future. That's the future. That's what we are all trying to learn, because it's not that you're not going to have those feelings. You're going to have different feelings. But you're going to process through those and then you're going to go out and play. It's like so simple, but it's like we've been in this world that's so polarized. Like the feelings and the emotions that we have, they sort of have been sticking to us our whole lives. It's like you can't get out of it, So my hope is that with this experience, even that most of the children will be okay because they do have that very, very future ability to process through and then
the resilience to bounce back and all that. And then with this being the year of the rabbit, it's a year of hope.
Yeah.
We're gonna turn it around.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really interesting year. Very, very cool. I feel very good about it. Not to do that thing that everybody does on the new year. It's going to be a good one, man. But I really do feel good. I mean, listen, it's all Axel. That's basically why I feel so excited about it. It's because of you, Bunny.
So here's to you, Axel. Cheers.
Cheers. Love you guys.
Love
Thanks
you.
so much.